Hey, this is Matt Whitlock, technology editor for the Channel Pro Network, and I'm here with a wonderful guest that we get to talk with. I always love it when I get a chance to speak with him. That guest is the one, the only Fred Voccola, CEO of Kaseya. Hi, Fred.
Hey, Matt, how you doing? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm so glad to be able to sit down and have an interview with you because according to my notes, it's been a while since we last spoke, right at the beginning of the pandemic, according to my notes, and I'm going to ask you about that in a second. But for those who have been living on Mars or the moon or or in a cave or something, why don't you tell everybody who you are?
Yeah, I'm Fred Voccola. I'm the CEO of Kaseya. We are the largest provider of software for IT and cybersecurity management for the MSP channel. And, we're based in Miami. We're global, about 5,000 people around the world. And like I said, Matt, super pumped to be here, man. We were saying it's been 4 years since we spoke. Man, I miss you. I miss you. So it's good to be back. Good to be back with you.
Yeah, well, the industry got very distracted with what that thing that they called the coronavirus pandemic. It kind of sent everybody into a tizzy,
Yeah.
and we were all reacting to that. And you know what's interesting? What's so funny? I was thinking, like, right now, since AI is the dominant conversation and has been since really the end of 2022, it's almost like the pandemic is forgotten. But we're still kind of dealing with the effects of that. So in your opinion, what are some of the lasting consequences on MSPs that's had and that's kind of stuck around and its effects through the industry?
Yeah, the pandemic represented, I mean, it's crazy to think back to that time. We were all wearing masks and afraid to touch doorknobs and washing our hands 70 times a day. And, it's amazing how the world has changed back, and what's been permanently adopted and not. I think a couple things, some impacts of the pandemic have been permanent. And one of them is the importance that particularly small to mid-sized businesses, right? The customers of the MSPs. I think the pandemic really solidified the importance of business and industrial applications for them. There was a lot of talk for a long time about how small to mid-sized businesses are following what the enterprise did, say, 20 years ago in terms of digitally transforming, becoming reliant on their business and industrial systems. And what the pandemic showed was, regardless of the vertical industry, whether it's a restaurant, an architect, a doctor's office, a gym, physical therapy center, you name it, they all realized not only how dependent they were on their systems, but how the business and industrial systems would allow them to thrive in a quote unquote lockdown world. Everyone adjusted their business models. Now, telemedicine is now mainstream. It took how long for telemedicine to become mainstream pre-pandemic? It took a decade of trying to make it happen. 6 months later, insurance companies are reimbursing doctors for telemedicine appointments. They couldn't get it done for a decade. So there's a million examples of that. But to your question, Matt, for the MSPs, what I think, I don't want to say surprised us in the industry, but made us all take a sigh of relief, was the very last thing that small to mid-sized businesses were canceling was their IT and security, because they needed it to run whatever was left of their business and as they rebuilt their businesses in a more digital first fashion. And I think that stickiness of the MSP sector, the true recurring revenue nature of the recurring revenue that MSPs were generating, and the durability of it, was eye-opening to the investor community. And as you know, Matt, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen just an explosion of tier 1 and tier 2 private equity money coming into the MSP sector. And I know most of these folks just from my career the last 25 years, and I work with a lot of them on their interest in MSPs. And that durability during the pandemic really changed the perspective and opened the eyes, or maybe turned the corner for people realizing that MSPs are mission critical to the largest sector of the economy, and that is small to mid-sized business. And I think that's probably the most sticking thing that the pandemic taught regarding our industry.
It's interesting you say that because it seems like the role of MSPs has evolved a lot over the years, and mostly because of the importance of technology and
Yeah.
business, right? That's grown a lot. And they were technical people at one that were like just like limited to managing networks and doing software updates, but now they're like real business partners that are involved with everything from helping them get insurance to streamlining business operations. But like our but I think you're right. Like they are critically undervalued right now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. So we talk a lot about this concept, and quite frankly, it's a little bit of an injustice. So if you think about most small to mid-sized businesses, companies 200 employees or fewer, they probably represent 99% of the end customers of MSPs, right? Maybe 85% of the revenue and 99% of the end customers. And these customers, your architect, your dental practice, your doctor's office, et cetera, advertising agency, they typically have three external service providers that they leverage, like law firms for their legal needs, a CPA firm for their tax and their accounting needs, and for their technology needs, a managed service provider. When you think about the complexity of the work, what an MSP does is 500 times more difficult than what a lawyer does or what an accounting firm does. And that's not being disrespectful to lawyers and accountants. It's just a lot harder. And it's about 5,000 times more important. That's not to say that an architecture firm doesn't value what their law firm does for them. But if the law firm takes a week off, the architecture firm continues to do architecture work. If their systems are not available and secure, their business stops. So the value and importance is much higher. Yet the respect, the recognition, and the rewards that MSPs get they're a fraction of the value they provide. Here's a crazy stat, Matt. Of those service providers I mentioned before, the average profit margin of law firms is around 35%. Of a CPA firm, a private CPA firm, is around 30-35%. Do you realize the average profit margin of an MSP in North America is 10%? How is it that the most valuable business partner doing the hardest work and the most important sector of our entire economy, right? The MSPs, which by the way, also play the role as the protector against cybercrime for the entire small to mid-sized business market. They make less than 1/3 the profit margin of the other business service providers, which aren't as important or sophisticated as they are. So, MSPs, it's a bit of an injustice. And it's something that, at least at Kaseya, that we're looking to, as our mission is, we want to fix that. But that's what we see in the market. And it's a challenge for MSPs, because if your business is running a 10 or 15 or even 18% profit margin, it limits the amount of investment you can make. It puts a lot more pressure on your employees. When I talk to MSPs, a lot of the engineers and technicians of MSPs, they're a little overworked. They're overworked because they have to be, because the profit margins of the business are low, because the unit economics are not in favor of the MSP. And it's causing real problems. And those are some of the things that Kaseya is about solving.
So it's one of the I was going to ask you like some of the things that partners are doing right now and wrong. It seems like one of the things they're doing wrong is they're not charging enough.
Yeah, I think that's it's interesting. I would say yes. I think that I would love it if every MSP could charge 50% more, because what they're doing is worth it. The challenge is the end customers of MSPs don't always understand the value that's being provided. If you're doing an amazing job at IT and cybersecurity management, you're probably not talking to you're not hearing from me a lot, right? If I'm your service provider, I'm doing a good job, things are smooth. And a lot of MSPs focus on doing their job instead of bragging about what a good job they've done. And I think the industry overall needs to get a little bit better at quite frankly, just pointing out how difficult things are and how good a job they're doing. But it's not just on the top line side. It's not just charging more. When we talk about the unit economics being kind of not in favor of the MSP, the average MSP, for example, spends about 25% of their revenue on the software and hardware used to deliver their managed services. They're using 15 different products from 18 different vendors. And each vendor, justifiably so, has to charge a top amount in order to justify their business. One of the things that we talk about at Kaseya is leveraging a platform like Kaseya's Kaseya 365. It cuts that software cost in half, doubling the profit of an MSP right away. Another thing that MSPs that are on the higher end of the profit spectrum do is they leverage automation. If an MSP has 10 engineers and those 10 engineers are doing everything manually, the amount of revenue per engineer is hard. Not to mention, those engineers are going to be overworked, frustrated, and they might make mistakes because things are manual. If they can leverage automation, then the next 20, 30 accounts that MSP acquires, they don't need to add more resources. The engineers are working less, delivering more revenue, and making fewer mistakes. So a lot of the focus of the industry needs to look at how do we drive more automation, particularly how can we leverage AI to drive more of that automation to make the engineers more successfully productive.
Yeah, interesting. So let's talk a little bit about AI, because I know in the Kaseya 365 stack, you're starting to see a lot more integration with other tools and a lot more AI being kind of baked in. What are some of the things that Kaseya is doing with AI to make their platforms better?
Yeah, so we've said this a lot. AI has the potential in an industry like the MSP industry, where there's MSPs are doing so many like manual things and repetitive tasks. There's such an opportunity for AI to make a positive impact for MSPs and for MSPs customers and for the result that they produce. So we started on this AI journey about 5 years ago now. So our approach, so let's leave Kaseya aside for a second. AI depends on a couple of things. First and foremost, how rich, robust, and effective and relevant your data set is, right? Because you're making a lot of data pattern recognition and other types of aspects in your models and your Gen AI stuff. So one of the things that Kaseya we're very fortunate to have is we have more data. We have about 1 million engineers around the world, 1 million MSP engineers using our platform every day. And they're supporting about 50 to 60 million small to mid-sized businesses around the world. And it's for endpoint management, endpoint security, network security, backup, documentation, pen testing, network management, everything. So we have a tremendous amount of data, not only technical metadata that comes from our products, but also the metadata about how these engineers actually work, what they do, what order of things they do, where they spend their time, how they make their mistakes. So we have tremendous amounts of data, and we built we put that into our AI capabilities. We built an AI engine. We call it Cooper, right? It's my dog. My dog is the smartest dog in the world because he is the artificial intelligence engine of our platform.
It's really named after your dog?
Yeah, Cooper. That's the Cooper awesome. Intelligence engine. Oh yeah, I got a picture of him. I don't know if you can see it with this background, but a picture of him right here. It's tough to see, but anyway, yeah, Cooper Intelligence engine. And we first put our toe in the water with an application called Cooper Insights. And what Cooper Insights do is they watch the usage pattern of how an MSP's technician or engineer is using our platform, and it alerts them to different features or techniques that they could do to get a better outcome based on how the millions and millions of users are using the platform. We released that about 4 years ago, and that was 3 years ago rather. And that was it was and is incredibly successful. The next piece was we got a little more aggressive, and we created and started releasing what are called Cooper bots. Cooper bots are end-to-end business workflow automations that are powered by our AI engine. So our platform, IT Complete, contains about a module for just about everything an MSP needs to do to deliver their managed services and run their business, right? So we have, RMM, backup, security, compliance, networking, documentation, PSA, all that. So many of the workflows that an MSP does spans multiple technologies. You might, have to look at an alerting product and then go into a documentation solution, then to a PSA, et cetera, et cetera. So in our platform, we have integrated all of our products at the application level, not just through an API, connectivity, but truly built them as one, very similar to how Microsoft built Microsoft Office back in the day. And so that integration creates like a superhighway. And that superhighway allows us to build AI-driven cross-product automations. So many of these repetitive tasks get immediately identified and automated through the AI engine. It adds huge amounts of productivity. And then the third piece is we're leveraging Gen AI now in our platform through our Cooper engine to do what we call Cooper Copilot, which is the third AI-based application we leverage, which really takes a lot of the data, for example, that you'll get in our PSAs and our documentation solutions. We have the largest IT documentation solution. I'll go look at the, quite frankly, the language in that and come up with predisposed proactive actions to take. So you can do a lot of, MSPs can do a lot of self-service resolution and proactive self-service prevention with the platform. I mean, this has been incredible for us and for our customers. And I still think, with the platform that we have, we're just scratching the surface about what can be done. This is a really exciting time to be a software provider for MSPs and an MSP leveraging a lot of the stuff that can be done.
Yeah, and a lot of what you're leveraging is not necessarily like generative AI, which has kind of caught everybody's attention today, but it's a lot of machine learning stuff that's just been around for a long time and it's constantly evolving. How is Kaseya updating and evolving the AI solutions as these new models emerge and as they get better?
Yeah, so we have a pretty robust, I'm gonna say, AI group inside of Kaseya. All of our product and engineering people are AI knowledgeable. Every company like Kaseya and all of our competitors are always doing continuous education. So our engineers and architects and product people are always up to speed on the latest technologies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Every good software company does that. But we do have a dedicated team of AI engineers, and it's really on the research side. So they're looking at all of the different technologies, whether it be new Gen AI models, whether it's our proprietary models, third-party models, the integration of them both, new types of database processing to support the models, new types of chips to put into our data centers to really leverage the power and harness the capabilities that exist. So it's an ongoing effort, but I want to emphasize, Matt, like it's what we found with AI is a lot of the talk around AI is still academic. What I mean by that is there are very real world solutions that are leveraging AI, but the demonstrability of business value from the AI, it's not always a straight line. And one of the things that we feel pretty good about is we've been able to say, listen, our language models or our machine learning to be proper has allowed us with or in combination of the integrations of our different modules and products to be able to build real world automations that are automating upwards of 60% of what an MSP's engineers do. And that's tangible value. It's very tangible. It's super cool to say, I can leverage ChatGPT to write all my marketing collateral. I don't need a marketing person anymore. I mean, it's a nice tool to be helpful, but to drive tangible value, if you can say to an MSP, you had $1 million of recurring revenue last year. Now you have 1.4 million, and you have the same number of technicians and engineers delivering that revenue, and they're all working 5 hours less a week, and you have 15% fewer returns or errors or runbacks. That's tangible, quantified ROI value, and that's what we've seen. And I'd love to say it's because Kaseya is so great and so smart. We have really smart, great people. We're just lucky enough to be applying in an industry that really needs automation. And our data set is so big that we're able to leverage it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how Kaseya's grown to position itself in the market, right? So, I mean, Kaseya's, you grew a platform that really does encompass a vast majority of an MSP's needs. So Kaseya's approach isn't necessarily to build the best in breed tool. I'm sure they want to, but it's to build, they want to own the stack, basically, right?
Yeah, and we look at it. So I talk a lot about best in breed. What does that mean? Best in breed for an MSP means what is the technology that will deliver the best result with the least amount of effort for the lowest cost. And I would argue, if you look at the modules of our platform on a standalone basis, I think they're best in breed. But the best in breed comes in how they work together, because very few, if any, MSPs have people in their organization that are only doing one thing. We use the term multifunctional engineers or multifunctional technicians. They're doing backup, they're doing RMM, they're doing security management, they're doing compliance management over the course of an hour, a week, a day, a minute. Their workflow spawns multiple functional areas. So instead of having 17 screens open and trying to play catch up and following your business process through 17 screens, have one screen open and automated. And that allows the end result to be a higher quality end result with less labor required at a higher profit margin. And we've been on a journey for 10 years, and we've made a lot of mistakes along the way, Matt, probably too many to count, but hopefully no one's counting. But we've made a lot of mistakes, but I also think we've done a lot of things right in recognizing that the MSP engineer is overwhelmed. Just think security. The security landscape has quintupled in the last 5 years? The things at least, right? The things an MSP has to do are almost immeasurable. Right now, most cybersecurity insurance policies are requiring a penetration test at least once a year. A penetration test isn't easy to do. So we bought a company called Vonai that does automated pen testing. So now you can do a pen test in 30 minutes instead of having to spend $10,000 to do a pen test. And that pen test integrates in with dark web credential monitoring, integrates in with security awareness training. So it's all one workflow. And that is providing value to the MSP. And that is what best of breed is when we think about what really matters to these overwhelmed MSPs.
And with so many pieces of the stack, Kaseya is in a very interesting position to make that available much cheaper than if you slap it together. Although some MSPs feel that that's still what they want to do, right? So there's a lot of different ways to run a business. But Kaseya's argument's pretty compelling for sure. I want to shift the top conversations. We're kind of running out of time here, but I want to talk a little bit about just the current state of the IT channel and what you see just coming down the months ahead.
So I had this conversation with my nephew recently, talking about career. And I said to him, listen, I'm probably the last person to ask for advice about a career, but I would say technology always has been and always will be the future, whether it's IT technology, whether it's petroleum technology in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, or nuclear technology in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. There's technology is the game changer. And I said, when I think about the next 25 years, one of the things I think is going to continue to proliferate is the percentage of our economy, both North America and globally, that is made up by small to mid-sized businesses. Because technology is allowing small to mid-sized businesses to compete with larger global brands like they never could before. I mean, CRM technology is pretty basic in 2024. It's available to everyone. In 1994, you had to have a 100-person IT organization to even think about installing on-premise Siebel, which was the dominant CRM, or Goldmine, or ACT at the time. The world changes pretty quick, and that gives more the ability to be more productive. The productivity balance shifts a bit because now small companies have access to the same thing that only big companies used to. And small companies are by definition more nimble and more entrepreneurial. The disadvantage that they've historically had over the large companies is they couldn't get the investments for productivity gains that technology gave. Well, now that's balanced. So from an MSP perspective, all these small to mid-sized businesses, which are making a larger and larger portion of the global economy, they don't have internal IT and security. And their systems are their most important asset. So they need MSPs to deliver it for them. So the market is continuing to expand at about 4 times GDP growth. The MSP market is growing about 14% a year. Some say 12, some say 15, but it's a disproportionately faster growth in the economy. Great time to be an MSP. Now, like anything, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Market is a very efficient market. So because it's a great market to be in, everybody wants to come in. So there's a lot of competition. So the MSPs that are effectively able to leverage automation to make their engineers more productive, that are able to get their cost structure in place. So instead of spending 25% on their software and hardware kit, they can spend 10 or 15%. They have more, if they're getting more revenue per engineer because they make the engineers more efficient, if they're spending less on software and technology, they will win because their gross margins will be higher and they can then invest more in their business. They can be aggressive on pricing and still make their financial objectives. The last thing I would say is, I think that we're just scratching. I think we finished the first phase of cybersecurity threats for small to mid-sized businesses. I think that in the last 8 years, there's been a massive shift in the cyber gangs and the organized cyber criminal elements. They're not focused as much on the Fortune 1000. I'm talking about the commercially minded cyber criminals, not the political ones.
Right.
They're now focusing on small to mid-sized businesses because one, they think they're easier taking, and two, there's only so much police and government resource that can pursue them. So if you steal $50,000 in a ransom, you're not going to get pursued as hard as if you steal $50 million in a ransom. And they know that. They're very smart people.
And it's a much bigger audience to prey on too.
Huge. And I think that the MSP community has now recognized they're the targets, and they're doing a pretty good job of becoming security first MSPs. But I think the next phase of it, so the cyber criminals innovated first. MSPs started playing defense with help from people like Kaseya and other vendors, giving technologies and focus to play good defense. Now we're seeing the next phase where the cyber criminals have rapidly adopted AI and AI-based technologies to massively juice their security threat potential. It's like the bad guys just took a bunch of steroids for a year. They came back much stronger and meaner and more creative. And the next iteration of cyber defense is starting. So MSPs that are going to continue to be successful have to embrace that. And I also think in the second phase, governments have caught up with understanding not only the importance of cyber threats, but the importance of them targeting SMBs. And governments have recognized that they can't police it. There's not enough FBI agents and folks like that. So we're going to see a lot of regulation and a lot of standard requirements hitting SMBs in order for them to basically get licenses to exist. And the MSP are going to be the ones who deliver it. And that's a fantastic opportunity for MSPs out there.
Well, and that circles us right back around to the whole critical value conversation that we kind of started with. But that I don't think that regulation is going to be limited just to SMBs. I think a lot of regulation is going to be coming to the MSPs themselves.
Yeah. Because MSPs, don't forget, are SMBs.
Well, they are. It'll be different regulations, though. But I think the days of anyone being able to say that they're an IT provider or a computer technician or whatever that is gonna be licensed. It's gonna be something that gets licensed, like a dentist or a doctor.
Yeah. So Matt, I had one of the scariest conversations earlier today that I've had in a long time. I was talking to an MSP partner of ours, and they weren't small. It wasn't a part-time person or a two-person shop. This is a north of 25 employee MSP. So it's a real, a real business. They were not or are not doing security awareness training for their customers, nor are they backing up the email and other SaaS applications for their customers. And it was scary. This is a successful MSP. They have real customers and a real business. So to your point, Matt, I think you're right. There are going to be standards that have to be complied with. We think they're going to be, we spend a lot of time in Washington with different folks. FedRAMP is already taking place. I think you'll see a commercial version of a FedRAMP requirement, similar to CMMC. And I don't think we're going to see like hard regulation. I think we're going to see soft regulation, meaning if you want to leverage the financial system, you may have to comply with XYZ standard. Well, how can you run a business if you can't leverage the financial system? I think you'll see things like that happening. And I do think you'll start seeing licensing requirements for people doing like data and IT and security management. I'm hopeful that it doesn't come from the government, that it comes from an industry self-regulating body, very similar to, like FASB for the accounting sector or bar associations for lawyers, but it's definitely coming. And MSPs who embrace that, it's another revenue opportunity for MSPs. And I think early adopters for those types of activities have a huge leg up in the next 10 years in the MSP space.
Yeah, not that I necessarily want to talk about like politics or anything, but there is an election coming up. Do you see the outcome of that election impacting the kind of regulations that or government involvement that we're going to see down the road?
Yeah, so in a very nonpartisan way, Kaseya, like every software company, anytime our industry is talked about being regulated, we want to have a voice at the table. So we, very active along with Microsoft and other companies with the various people at CISA, which is part of Homeland Security, Congress, various people who are involved in either standard setting, regulatory decision making, or influencing of recommended behaviors. And I think both sides, both the Democrats and the Republicans, the awareness is there. One of the cool things about cybersecurity is it's not political. It's not partisan. If you're Kamala Harris or if you're Donald Trump, cybersecurity is still important. And both parties would like to have stable, small to mid-sized businesses because both parties want the economy to do well. They may have different approaches and everyone can comment their own way there. But I think this is a pretty across the aisle type of conversation. I've been in meetings with both sides of the political aisle and they're actually getting along and they're talking about, trying to come with constructive solutions. I don't think either side, whether you see a Kamala Harris win or a Donald Trump win, I don't think either side is going to approach this problem in a materially different way because I don't think this problem is it's not a partisan issue. There might be subtle differences, of course, but nothing material. I think either way, the trend cannot be avoided that small to mid-sized businesses are driving the economy. MSPs are allowing them to exist. They're keeping them secure, keeping them active, and there will be some kind of controls overseeing MSPs and the small businesses to make sure that they're compliant.
Well, awesome. Well, Fred, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me and talking with the Channel Pro Network. I know right now Kaseya is really talking about their Kaseya 365 product. I had a chance to interview Ranjan Singh about that
nice.
on a Stack Up episode that we did for our Stack Up podcast. So go and check that out, folks, if you haven't seen
I definitely
will. If there's anywhere on Kaseya, anywhere you want to point people to or give anybody a call to action?
No, I just, first off, Matt, thank you for taking the time. I really enjoy it. And I'd like to do this more often. I really enjoy our sessions. I would say we have our DattoCon conference coming up in a couple of days, and we have a monster announcement. You can check out, Kaseya.com for everything, but our mission is very simple. We are a company 100% dedicated to making MSPs powered by Kaseya, the most successful MSPs in the world. And the announcement we're having at DattoCon will be a huge step forward at ensuring MSPs powered by Kaseya lead the charge. So just excited to see what the next several years play out. And it's been a great 10 years, man. I love being in the industry. Matt, thanks again for having me and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, thank you. I really do appreciate it. Of course, Channel Pro Network will be covering the DattoCon conference, and we'll be putting our own spin on the news that's coming out. It sounds interesting. I can't wait until we hear what the announcement is. So yeah, but anyways, Fred, yeah, I agree. We should sit down more often and chat. Long overdue, and we'll do it more often.
Definitely.
I appreciate it, and that's a wrap. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.